Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are looking at 5 games here on Thursday in the NBA as we get nearer to that playoff spot here. Nate, bunch of good games here that have playoff implications for sure. So we'll be taking a look at best bets in this video. Also got play of props up in the other one, so make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us all season. Also head to TheLines.com and use everything that we have up on the site as you gear up for that playoff betting in the NBA moving forward. Pretty good night on the night, 500 in the or a little bit better than 500 in the best bets here, 500 on the play of props. So still looking really good over the last week or so. Nate, let's jump right into your first best bet of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Sixers here at Miami and thinking like, well, if Embiid, Maxey play, like Tobias Harris also questionable, like if, and then I'm like, wait a minute, let's just take the Heat and assume somebody's not going to play or Embiid's just not going to be MVP Embiid, which we certainly saw in his return. Like, I mean, they crawled past a Thunder team missing their 2 best players and just basically punting it for the rest of the regular season, maybe it seems. But that's not the point here. I mean, the Sixers, maybe they're trying to out-heat the Heat on the injury report here with all this shadiness by playing Embiid when he was listed out on Tuesday. But the big thing is he doesn't have his wind back, right? I mean, he looked absolutely exhausted. 6 for 14 from the field, 6 turnovers, 12 for 12 at the line on a lot of bullshit calls. And I mean, the NBA is cracking down on these types of bullshit calls where you create the contact or you flop. And for some reason, they didn't, hone in on Embiid as a main guy for that. They've been honing in on guards like your guy Brunson. And I think maybe as he starts to get more out there under these new points of emphasis, he's not going to get the same calls he's been accustomed to. But regardless, I mean, Miami is maybe the best matchup in the league in terms of limiting him from going to the free throw line. I mean, they're third in free throw attempts on the season allowed. Their last 2 meetings with Embiid, he's gotten just 11 per game, 8 turnovers to 4 assists. His last 5, he is a negative 63 with a 106 offensive rating against Bam and the boys. They had won 3 straight in the regular season against the Heat prior to the last time I tried to look at this motivation spot for the Heat, which was like, okay, they need to beat the Sixers to stay out of the play-in. And I guess they were just like, nah, it's a back-to-back. We'll sit Jimmy. We'll catch you later. And sure enough, we wake up, they're in 6. They're sitting absolutely perfectly in this crowded, muddled situation where they either get the Cavs or the backsliding Bucks. And I think they feel fully confident they can beat either of those teams in a series. And they're playing some incredible ball right now. Like I didn't even notice how great these numbers were. Their last 4 with Jimmy, they are plus 31 net with a 97 defensive rating. They are the number 1 team limiting 3-point shooting. Philly's been very dependent on threes lately. They are the number 1 team in assist to turnover ratio. And on the other side, they are the number 1 3-point shooting team, 46% with Terry Rozier leading the way cooking. And then this is now you get Jimmy in the lineup. Like I said, 4 straight impressive wins with him. They dropped 1 against Golden State. He comes to play against Philly. Another revenge spot for Jimmy, another spot that gets his playoff acumen up. So I took the last 10, including playoffs for him, averages 25, 7, and 6 against the Sixers. He's a plus 60. Embiid in those same games is a minus 40. Give me the Heat here, minus 2.5 or 3 or whatever you get it at.
Jimmy Butler to the moon for sure. He loves playing this Philly team, right? Like this is a team that he gets to place pretty consistently now, being in that Eastern Conference, and he loves it, right? Since coming over from the West when he was on the Wolves after that Bulls, like. Yeah, those teams he never forgets playing. Some guys remember who was drafted before them. Jimmy Butler remembers which teams scorned him at this point, and he definitely comes to play. This would be a high motivation moment for the Heat. They do seem to have everybody. I don't consider Tyler Hero a part of this team anymore. But yeah, it was definitely shocking for me to be capping this game as well and see number 1 net rating over their last 5, number 4 net rating over their last 10, with the 3rd best offensive rating over their last 5. Now, granted, their last 5 games have not been the toughest of competition. But they have played the Knicks in there, and they still have that record, as well as the Cavs and the Pelicans. It's just those were the games they played with Jimmy Butler anyway over their last 5. And like you said, he only missed that Golden State game. So it's over the last 6 really because he played 5 of the last 6. But either way, Jimmy being in there and sort of being playoff Jimmy already in a situation where, I mean, I would imagine that they care about the 6th seed. It would be the most Heat thing ever if Jimmy just is a late scratch at like 5:45 p.m. Eastern, right? Like that would be the most Heat thing ever. But with the way that it looks right now with everybody available, then yeah, I'm on this bet with you as well. The next bet I'm going to is an under. For a Kings team that is now just not the Kings team that this is not your younger brother's kids. Like literally like 3 months ago, this is a completely different team. And this is now the complete new look squad. You've got Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter out. So guess I didn't say it, under 216.5 in this game against the Knickerbockers in New York at the Garden. And this is going to come down to, for me, just the way that these teams have been playing. And I believe in it now because without Huerter and without Malik Monk, you're talking about a lot more Keon Ellis and a lot more Davion Mitchell. And I do think that Mike Brown has made clear that he wants his team to be more of a defensive minded team going into the playoffs, with the understanding that like they're not going to get into shootouts with teams like the Warriors, even who might not even make the playoffs, but such as the Warriors from last year in the playoffs, where they couldn't hang when it came down to scoring 120 every game in the playoffs. Like they need to be able to stop teams. And that's what they've been doing over their last, really, it's been 10 games, but specifically their last 5. They have the 5th slowest pace in the league. I don't think you thought I would ever say that about a Kings team over any course of games in a row, where they would have the 5th slowest pace that they're playing at. Amongst the 16th defensive rating, it's been a little bit better if you look at the 10-game sample size as opposed to the 5-game sample size, where they've definitely had a much tougher schedule as of late than the Knicks have. And they've been playing a bit more at home, but now that we find them on the road again, that's where we come back to that defensive rating and a little bit slower pace. Still, it's really down to this Keon Ellis stuff and the way that they have defended 3-pointers so much better than they were, where they were just a complete turnstile at 3 and a bottom 5 team in terms of the amount of threes that they were allowing per game. And they've now crawled out of the bottom 10 after a few, basically a month and a half of playing good 3-point defense, which they didn't do for the first 3.5 months of the season. So the way that they're shooting the ball also not exactly impressive. And this Knicks team, although they've been a bit more of an offensive-minded team over their last 5 games, that's just a small sample size of playing some pretty bad teams, whereas opposed to the last 10 games and even on the season, right, still with one of the best defensive ratings in the league. They are missing, Julius Randle was just announced out for the season. He's undergoing shoulder surgery. And I already poured one out. I did my morning this morning, and now I'm looking forward to Precious Achiuwa and Isaiah Hartenstein. We've got Josh Hart, who is questionable in this game, but he is a pace setter in terms of speeding up pace. He's the dude who speeds up the pace the most for this Knicks team. So although he is a good defender and a very good rebounder, standing at like 6'4", and one of the best power forwards in the league, like Charles Barkley-esque, he's still really an offense. Like he helps the offense go faster. That's really all it comes down to. He's the dude out in transition alongside Dante D and a little bit of Miles McBride now, and even Jalen Brunson, but more so Jalen Brunson wants to get that ball up top, play pick and roll, and get his shots inside the paint and right around the mid-range, and obviously some threes. So with the way that they're playing that, like that's something that the Kings actually defend pretty poorly, is the pick and roll. But if the only guy they're giving it up to is Jalen Brunson, then that does mean that they're going to be stopping a few other guys. And yeah, I think with the way that these two teams are matching up, they're like the Suns, I'm a little bit, the Kings, I'm a little bit biased, but they're just like an under machine at this point, going under the majority of their last 10 games. So I think we've caught up finally, the books have, to the idea that this Kings team is not the same one that we're used to. But still, I think 216.5 with a total versus with the Knicks is like a gift to go under, because they aren't hitting that number very much.
Yeah, the Knicks are allowing 89.5 points in their last 6 home games. They are just absolutely stifling people when they're at the Garden. I mean, kind of like the Knicks to win the game on top of this, but you want Josh Hart in there to rely on that, because Jalen is not going to be able to guard De'Aaron Fox and score his 30-35, right? I mean, they need Josh Hart out there as another option to throw at Fox, but they have some big bodies now to throw at Domas. So you're interested in the under there for his like points and assists maybe. Should be a lot of rebounds, though, to go around in this game if we do get another under after, these teams combined for well under 200 in Sacramento. And now you get the Road Kings. So we've been targeting that for a while. I mean, I think I like the plus money here with the Hawks. If you go Hawks plus 12, like I feel, half unit confident about that. I think you might as well parlay that with DeJounte Murray to score 25. Like DeJounte is going to have to score to keep this team in the game at Dallas. Dallas coming off a loss, but Dallas on the front end of a back-to-back with the Warriors tomorrow in a much more important game. So how does that play into things? Well, I mean, they're tipping that they're sitting Lively again and Josh Green. So that's going to be an issue in terms of their defense. We saw, I mean, Lively was missed against the Warriors in that game 2 nights ago, and I mean, they might try to pull away from the Hawks and get some extra rest, or they might be looking ahead to this next game. And everybody seems to be overlooking the Hawks a little bit, and all they do is win and cover right now, even without getting their boy Jalen Johnson back, who just dropped a triple double against Detroit. And that wasn't even like a real team they played last night. So this is a back to back, yes, but that was Malachi Flynn dropping 50 and just like a total G League team. Just bizarre stuff. So, I mean, even on back to backs, though, they've won 4 of their last 5, the Hawks. The only loss was when Jalen Johnson got injured in the first quarter at the Lakers, right? They are now 6-1 in their last 7. Only had to play 1 on the road, so it's not the worst rest spot in that sense. There's some bounce back factor here in terms of their defense, right? I mean, last time they faced the Mavs, in fact, the last 3 times they've been insane shootouts where it's just Luka and Trey going back and forth, being like, look, the whole draft narrative, whatever. Luka dropped 73 in just an utterly embarrassing performance. And I mean, but now Trey Young and Sadiq Bey, who are both out of there for the rest of the season, and they were just like a defensive disgrace. So it's great that the Hawks now are playing guys who are going to try on the defensive end, and that with these guys in, they're the number 3-point defense in their last 7 here, and Dallas is number 1 in terms of scoring points off threes in that span. So they're also limiting rebounds, assists. And then on the other end, I mean, Dallas, we know now, is elite guarding the paint. But Atlanta's number 1 scoring points off threes lately, 22nd in paint points. They are not even depending on getting to the line. They're lowest in that department, tied with Golden State. Just beat the Mavs. Also, their bench is killing it. Number 2 field goal percentage. Now you get more depth with Jalen in the starting lineup. And the Dubs just outscored the Mavs bench 39-13 to get that win. So, I mean, with DJ setting the tone, then guys off the bench, kind of capitalizing there, I think they hang in this game. Like the trends to support it, Mavs have gone under a 9 of their last 10 at home. This total is dropping. So, again, it's hard to cover a 12-point spread with a dropping total that you expect to go under. They've only won once by 11+. That was Utah, who's not even trying. They are 5-7 against the spread with a rest advantage. They are 18-11 after a loss against the spread, but only average margin of 3 points per game. And then they're 500 against the spread as a home favorite versus 17-4 as road favorite. So the spread that the odds makers are baking in at home as if the Mavs are going to be much better, it seems to be incorrect. Like Luka is just as much of a killer wherever he is. So when they get the smaller number on the road, they cover. But now the Hawks, without Trey, gone from the worst covering team in the league to one of the best. And I think we can take them here, even on a back-to-back.
Be careful, because you're talking about DeJounte Murray, and you know how much of a rant I'm capable of going on when you get onto DJM talk. And I just don't know how you keep Trey Young next year. Like, how is DJ Murray and Jalen Johnson not the face of your franchise moving forward? Those 2 dudes are killers. Jalen Johnson is as good of a passer as Trey Young. Don't quote me on that, but you get what I'm saying. He's surprisingly good as a facilitator. Unbelievable with the dimes that he had last night. I love this look. I love this spot as well. This Hawks team has become so fun to root for as opposed to what they were at one point in time not too long ago. So I just kind of hope they keep it going to all the points that you're making here, and really nothing to add. I do think the under was a little bit tastier and valuable at the 231.5 that it opened at. And now that it's down to 228 and even 227.5 on some books as it continues to drop, like that is the right play when you look at how this Dallas Mavs team has changed dramatically and drastically on defense. What's that?
Yeah, dramatically
on defense. Like, that's how bad it's been. You think that the Kings have changed the way they play. This Mavs team with Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, who I will be preaching from the rooftops about until people give him the due that he is deserved as one of the best defenders in the league right now. He's been incredible. So yeah, I love the defense that brings to the Mavs and the unders that we are allowed to take there. And I am also going to take an under here in this game. Obviously, you took the Hawks last game, but I'm taking an under in this Golden State and Houston game here. I believe you can still get 227.5. I don't want to lie to you. Oh yeah, you can get 228.5. So this actually, some people bet this down from the opening at 228.5 to like 226.5, and now it's gone right back up to 228. And I think the under is still a good play here. Now, the only thing that scares me about the under is Cam Whitmore is back, and Cam Whitmore is a cannonball. Like, dude is just shot out of a gun every time that he gets the ball in his hands, and is one of the dudes playing at the fastest pace. Well, he is playing at the fastest pace on this Rockets team. He's the dude that gets out in transition. That said, and the Dubs have bad transition defense. It's just that simple. So that's one area that they're going to need to shore up. But I see this as a playoff game, man. This is 10 versus 11. This is like the last thing we have left to like fighting for your playoff lives is still fighting for a play-in tournament spot, right? And then once we get into the play-in, we've obviously got the elimination possibilities, but this is still like going to be what you saw when 8 versus 9 used to be playing in these situations, and that does tend to go towards an under here. The other thing for these two teams is like this is not the same Rockets team that it was right after Şengün left, and we were also both making very clear, like, be cautious. Like, Houston looks amazing right now. They're playing really fast. They're also hitting an inordinate amount of three-pointers with like a 50% three-point percentage, not sustainable. They're playing teams like the Wizards twice. They're playing the Pistons, right? They were playing some poo-poo defenses for sure that were not worth our time in terms of taking them seriously as to why the Rockets were doing so well. But now you look at the last few games where the Rockets have played a much tougher schedule over the course of their last roughly 3 to 5 games, and that offensive rating has gone down from at one point third in the league, like just a couple weeks ago, to 22nd over their last 5 games. The D ratings back down to about 11th in the league as well, and playing at 11th in the fastest pace. So much slower than the fastest pace that they were running at, like 104 points per 100 that they were playing at here just a couple weeks ago. So with everything slowing down for them, the rebound percentage a little bit worse. They have the 4th worst offensive effective field goal percentage over their last 5 as well. And so once you put some legitimate competition in front of them, they're just much more of a middle of the road team and not what we thought of these world beaters. They're still super fun to watch, but like that doesn't mean that they're good enough to necessarily score a ton of points against a Warriors team who has certainly started to put some more emphasis on defense, as they have the second best defensive rating, playing some bad offenses for sure. That road trip was nice to them because they got to play the Heat without Jimmy. They got to play the Magic, who were struggling on offense still, even though that Paolo had a really nice win against the Pelicans last night, which was very odd. But either way, the other teams like the Hornets and stuff. So yeah, the Dubs offense and their defense being good and their offense being bad is a little bit less reliable than maybe you might think. But I still think the emphasis on defense, being the number 1 rebounding team over their last 7 games as well, limiting teams to the second worst effective field goal percentage. So their defense has definitely skyrocketed. They've been going under pretty consistently, and the Rockets have gone under when they don't play like the Jazz or the Thunder, who are just playing at a ridiculously fast pace in their current situations, as one team's going to the playoffs, one's not. But either way, for this Rockets team, I think the attempts at like the pick and roll ball handler stuff that they rely on with Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet, they run that a ton these days. The Dubs are very good at limiting the pick and roll ball handler, 4th fewest points per game to that sort of play type and position. So I think with the way that this Houston Rockets runs offense, they're not, as long as the Dubs just keep them to a somewhat limited transition points and do not let Amin Thompson and Dylan Brooks even and Cam Whitmore especially get out into the open floor, which, by the way, Gary Payton Jr. is playing in this one, which is very helpful because that is their best sort of transition defender and maybe their best defender, to be honest, outside of Draymond. So all that does lead me to go under 228.5 now that you can get it at that number.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense based on like the couple scenarios I see this unfolding, which is either the Warriors are just going to sun this team and be like, yeah, nice run you had there. We're just going to absolutely put the kibosh on that. Or the Rockets are going to use their identity with Dylan Brooks and the toughness and the slow it down. And that in the last 3, they've been playing much slower, like you pointed out. And it's just going to be a slobber knocker, like a playoff type finish where you could even take a live under because the 4th quarter is just going to get really tight down the stretch. So I think it's the best way to bet this game. I'm shocked neither of us went to Denver -4. It's the game show music stinky line of the day. Why are they only -4 against the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard? The Clippers, who have been one of the worst teams in the leagues with Kawhi Leonard over the last month and have had no answers for the Nuggets. And they are now the second worst team in the post All-Star break in the 4th quarter. The Nuggets are number 1 with a bullet, with a +14 net. So, I mean, speaking of betting something down the stretch and expecting the Nuggets to pull that out, I just got to throw that in there as a bonus bet, is Nuggets money line with your favorite parlay of choice.
I get it. I get it. But the stink is all over it in a way that's like, why? Brian Windhorst meme. Why are they not more favored, right, on the
It's
road? Not totally sure. We'll see about tomorrow. I'm not necessarily betting the Clips just yet, but I am leaning Clippers because it makes no sense. The spread makes no sense, so this bet should make no sense. But that is all the time we have for you in Best Bets today. Subscribe to that page so you can continue to follow along. We also got those play-up props up that we have each and every weekday for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.